NATO Phonetic Alphabet. International adoption. After the phonetic alphabet was developed by the International Civil Aviation Organization, it was adopted by many other international and national organizations, including the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the International Telecommunication Union, the International Maritime Organization, the American Federal Aviation Administration, the Alliance for Telecommunications Industry Solutions, and the International Amateur Radio Union. It is a subset of the much older International Code of Signals, which originally included visual signals by flags or flashing light, sound signals by whistle, siren, foghorn, or bell, as well as 1, 2, or 3-letter codes for many phrases. The same alphabetic code words are used by all agencies, but each agency chooses one of two different sets of numeric code words. NATO uses the regular English numeric words, whereas the IMO provides for compound numeric words. In practice, these are used very rarely, as they frequently result in confusion between speakers of different languages. NATO. An alternative name for the ICAO spelling alphabet, NATO Phonetic Alphabet, exists because it appears in Allied Tactical Publication ATP 1, Volume 2, Allied Maritime Signal and Maneuvering Book used by all Allied navies of NATO, which adopted a modified form of the International Code of Signals. Because the latter allows messages to be spelled via flags or Morse code, it naturally named the code words used to spell out messages by voice its phonetic alphabet. The name NATO Phonetic Alphabet became widespread because the signals used to facilitate the naval communications and tactics of NATO have become global. However, ATP-1 is marked NATO Confidential, so it is not available publicly. Nevertheless, a NATO unclassified version of the document is provided to foreign, even hostile, militaries, even though they are not allowed to make it available publicly. The spelling alphabet is now also defined in other unclassified international military documents. The NATO alphabet appeared in some United States Air Force Europe publications during the Cold War. A particular example was the Ramstein Air Base telephone directory published between 1969 and 1973. The American and NATO versions had differences, and the translation was provided as a convenience. Differences included Alpha, Bravo and Able, Baker for the first two letters. History. The ICAO developed this system in the 1950s in order to account for discrepancies that might arise in communications as a result of multiple alphabet naming systems coexisting in different places and organizations. In the official version of the alphabet, the non-English spellings Alpha and Juliet are used. Alpha is spelled with an F as it is in most European languages, because the English and French spelling Alpha would not be pronounced properly by native speakers of some other languages, who may not know that PH should be pronounced as F. Juliet is spelled with a TT for French speakers, because they may otherwise treat a single final T as silent. In some English versions of the alphabet, one or both of these may have their standard English spelling. Code words. The final choice of code words for the letters of the alphabet and for the digits was made after hundreds of thousands of comprehension tests involving 31 nationalities. The qualifying feature was the likelihood of a code word being understood in the context of others. For example, football has a higher chance of being understood than foxtrot in isolation, but foxtrot is superior in extended communication. The pronunciation of the codewords varies according to the language habits of the speaker. To eliminate wide variations in pronunciation, recordings and posters illustrating the pronunciation desired by the ICAO are available. However, there are still differences in pronunciation between the ICAO and other agencies, and the ICAO has conflicting Roman alphabet and IPA transcriptions. Also, although all codes for the letters of the alphabet are English words, they are not in general given English pronunciations. Assuming that the transcriptions are not intended to be precise, only 11 of the 26 Bravo, Echo, Hotel, Juliet, Kilo, Mike, Papa, Quebec, Romeo, Whiskey, and Zulu are given English pronunciations by all these agencies, though not always the same English pronunciations. Pronunciation. Pronunciations are somewhat uncertain, because the agencies, while ostensibly using the same pronunciations, give different transcriptions, which are often inconsistent from letter to letter. The ICAO gives a different pronunciation for IPA transcription and for respelling, and the FAA also gives different pronunciations depending on the publication consulted. The FAA Aeronautical Information Manual, the FAA Flight Services Manual, or the ATC Manual, ATIS gives English spellings, but does not give pronunciations or numbers. The ICAO, NATO, and FAA use modifications of English numerals, with stress on one syllable, while the ITU and IMO compound pseudo-Latinate numerals with a slightly different set of modified English numerals, and with stress on each syllable. Numbers 10 to 99 are spelled out, while for hundreds and thousands the English words hundred and thousand are used. The pronunciation of the digits 3, 4, 5, and 9 differs from Standard English, being pronounced tree, fower, five, and niner. The digit 3 is specified as tree so that it is not pronounced tree. The long pronunciation of 4 keeps it somewhat distinct from 4. 5 is pronounced with a second f, because the normal pronunciation with a v is easily confused with fire, and 9 has an extra syllable to keep it distinct from German 9, no. Only the ICAO prescribes pronunciation with the IPA, and then only for letters. Several of the pronunciations indicated are slightly modified from the normal English pronunciations, partially due to the substitution of final schwas with the R vowel. In addition, the intended distinction between the short vowels and the long vowels is obscure, and has been ignored in the consolidated transcription above. Both the IPA and respelled pronunciations were developed by the ICAO before 1956 with advice from the governments of both the United States and United Kingdom, so the pronunciations of both General American English and British received pronunciation are evident, especially in the rhotic and non-rhotic accents. The respelled version is usually at least consistent with a rhotic accent, as in, and, whereas the IPA version usually specifies a non-rhotic accent, as in, and. Exceptions are, and. The IPA form of golf implies it is pronounced gulf, which is not either General American English or British received pronunciation. Different agencies assign different stress patterns to Bravo, Hotel, Juliet, November, Papa, X-ray. The ICAO has different stresses for Bravo, Juliet, X-ray in its respelled and IPA transcriptions. The mid-back vowel transcribed in Oscar and Foxtrot is actually a low vowel in both received British and General American, and has been interpreted as such above. Furthermore, the pronunciation prescribed for whiskey has no initial, although some speakers in both General American and RP pronounce an here, and an initial H is categorical in Scotland and Ireland. Prior alphabets. The first internationally recognized speaking alphabet was adopted by the ITU during 1927. The experience gained with that alphabet resulted in several changes being made during 1932 by the ITU. The resulting alphabet was adopted by the International Commission for Air Navigation, the predecessor of the ICAO, and was used for civil aviation until World War II. It continued to be used by the IMO until 1965. British and American armed forces had each developed their spelling alphabets before both forces adopted the ICAO alphabet during 1956. British forces adopted the RAF radio alphabet, which is similar to the phonetic alphabet used by the Royal Navy during World War I. At least two of the terms are sometimes still used by UK civilians to spell words over the phone, namely F for Freddy and S for sugar. The US adopted the Joint Army-Navy phonetic alphabet during 1941 to standardize systems among all branches of its armed forces. The U.S. alphabet became known as Abel-Baker after the words for A and B. The United Kingdom adapted its RAF alphabet during 1943 to be almost identical to the American Joint Army-Navy one. After World War II, with many aircraft and ground personnel from the Allied armed forces, Abel-Baker continued to be used for civil aviation. But many sounds were unique to English, so an alternative, Ana Brazil, alphabet was used in Latin America. But the International Air Transport Association, recognizing the need for a single universal alphabet, presented a draft alphabet to the ICAO during 1947 that had sounds common to English, French, Spanish and Portuguese. After further study and modification by each approving body, the revised alphabet was implemented on for civil aviation. Problems were soon found with this list. Some users believed that they were so severe that they reverted to the old Abel-Baker alphabet to identify the deficiencies of the new alphabet. Testing was conducted among speakers from 31 nations, principally by the governments of the United Kingdom and the United States. Confusion among words like delta, nectar, victor, and extra, or the unintelligibility of other words during poor receiving conditions were the main problems. After much study, only the 5 words representing the letters C, M, N, U, and X were replaced. The ICAO sent a recording of the new radiotelephony spelling alphabet to all member states in November 1955. The final version given in the table above was implemented by the ICAO on, and the ITU adopted it no later than 1959. When they mandated its usage via their official publication, Radio Regulations, because the ITU governs all international radio communications. It was also adopted by all radio operators, whether military, civilian, or amateur. It was finally adopted by the IMO in 1965. During 1947 the ITU adopted the compound number words, later adopted by the IMO during 1965. Usage. A spelling alphabet is used to spell parts of a message containing letters and numbers. To avoid confusion, because many letters sound similar, for instance, N and M or F and S, the potential for confusion increases if static or other interference is present. For instance, the message, "Proceed to map grid DH98, could be transmitted as, "Proceed to map grid Delta Hotel 908, using Delta instead of D, avoids confusion between DH98 and BH98 or TH98. The unusual pronunciation of certain numbers was designed to reduce confusion. In addition, to the traditional military usage. Civilian industry uses the alphabet to avoid similar problems in the transmission of messages by telephone systems. For example, it is often used in the retail industry where customer site details are spoken by telephone. Although ad hoc coding is often used in that instance, it has been used often by information technology workers to communicate serial reference codes or other specialized information by voice. Most major airlines use the alphabet to communicate passenger name records internally, and in some cases, with customers. It is often used in a medical context as well, to avoid confusion when transmitting information. Several letter codes and abbreviations using the speaking alphabet have become well known, such as Bravo Zulu for "Well Done," Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin, and Zulu time for Greenwich Mean Time, a coordinated universal time. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. government referred to the Viet Cong guerrillas and the group itself as VC, or Victor Charlie. The name Charlie became synonymous with this force. Aviation Delta is replaced by Data, Dixie or David at airports that have the majority of Delta Airlines flights, such as Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, in order to avoid confusion, because Delta is also Delta's call sign. Other Many unofficial spelling alphabets are in use that are not based on a standard, but are based on words the transmitter can remember easily, including first names, states, or cities. The LAPD phonetic alphabet has many first names. The German spelling alphabet also uses first names. Also, during the Vietnam War, soldiers used Kane instead of Charlie, because Charlie meant Viet Cong. Additions in other languages. Certain languages' standard alphabets have letters, or letters with diacritics, umlauts, rings, tildes, that do not exist in the English alphabet. If these letters have two-letter ASCII substitutes, the ICAO, NATO code words for the two letters are used. German and Swedish. In German, Alpha Echo may be used for A, Oscar Echo for O, Sierra Sierra for SS, and Uniform Echo for U. The same applies to A and O in Swedish, though Allergenosten from the Swedish spelling alphabet are also used similarly. RK may be used for A. Danish and Norwegian. In Danish and Norwegian, the letters E, O and A have their own code words. In Danish, AGIR, ODIS and ASE represent the three letters, while in Norwegian the three code words AGIR, or Nulf and AGOT for civilians, and Ærlig, Osten, and ASE for military personnel. Finnish. In Finnish there are special code words for the letters A, and O. RK is used to represent A. IT is used for A and OLG for O. These code words are used only in national operations, the last remnants of the Finnish radio alphabet. Estonian. Estonian has four special letters, O, A, O and U. On A represents O, Ani for A, Ubik for O, and Ol for U. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.